Becca here, and I am bringing you another one of Michelle's patterns. This one is called Moonstone. I am using my Leisure Arts oval 1/2" gauge loom, and for yarn I'm using Caron Simply Soft Speckle. It is a medium 4-weight yarn in colorway blue gingham. Let's walk through the pattern. For this one, you will want any loom with a minimum of 20 pegs and yarn appropriate for the loom. I casted it on 20 pegs with a simple no-hook crochet cast on. If you'd like to make it wider, you can. The pattern is multiples of 6 plus 2 for your end pegs. The pattern comes with written instructions as well as a chart. In this pattern, we will be knitting, purling, we will have yarn overs, we will have our edge pegs, slip slip knit, and knit 2 togethers. This pattern is a 4-row repeat. We are going to start with our edge pegs, and with our edge pegs you're going to purl or knit the peg, and then when you go back the other way you're going to knit it or purl it depending upon what works best for you. For our row 1, we're going to have 2 knits, a purl, a yarn over, a knit 2 together, and a purl. And then we're going to repeat that sequence for the rest of this row. For our row 2, we will obviously have our edge peg, and then we have 2 knits and a purl, and we will repeat that for the rest of the row. But with our rows 2 and our rows 4, we are going to use those rows then to set up for our knit 2 togethers on our row 1 and our SSKs on our row 3. For our row 3, we will have 2 knits, a purl, an SSK, a yarn over, and a purl. And then we're going to repeat that for the rest of the row. For our row 4, again, we're back with 2 knits and a purl for the rest of the row. Let's get started. I found that for me, what worked best is actually to use masking tape and write out all 4 rows on the masking tape. I use different colors to signify the different rows. So the black is my row 1, red is my row 2, blue is my row 3, and green is my row 4. I have my edge pegs here, so when I'm going right to left, I'm going to be purling, and left to right I will be knitting, but you can do whatever works best for you. I just completed my 4th row actually, which I used to set up for my row 1. Let's start with my edge peg here. So I'm going to start with a purl, for my edge, and then I have 2 knits and a purl, and then I'm going to come to a yarn over, so I'm going to lay my yarn loosely over the peg, and then I have my knit 2 together, and I'm just going to knit both of these off. If it's easier for you to lift both at the same time, go ahead, and then a purl. So I'm just going to repeat those steps again. So 2 knits, a purl, lay my yarn loosely, and then my knit 2 together, and a purl. Repeat again with my 2 knits, purl, yarn over, lay my yarn loosely over, and then my knit 2 together, and a purl. My last edge peg here, I'll do a purl, and then when I turn and go back to start my row 2, I am going to knit And then with this row, we are going to be using this to set up for our row 3. So in my row 3, you'll see here that I have an yarn over and an SSK. So when I get to those pegs on my row 2, I am actually going to be setting up for my SSK. So to do that, I'm going to start with knitting my first peg, knitting my second peg, and then with my third peg, I will purl it. And then I'm going to go back to my second peg here, and I'm going to pull a little bit, and then I'm going to move that stitch over. And that's going to set me up here for then my SSK. And then I'm going to keep doing my 2 knits and my purl. And then when I get to my next set, I'm going to set up for my SSK again. So I'm going to knit the first peg, knit the second peg, and then purl my third peg. You will see here for my row 3, again, yarn over and my SSK. So I'm going to go back, pull a little bit of yarn, and then move that over for my SSK for my third row. And then I'm going to continue on with my 2 knits and a purl. And then when I get here again to my SSK, I'm going to purl this one, and then go back and move that stitch back over. And then I'm going to finish my row 2 with my knits and my purl. And my last peg is going to be knit. Alright, so then we're on row 3. I'm going to start with my edge peg, and I am going to purl that. And then I have a knit, a purl, and then my SSK, lift both loops up and over, and then my yarn over, lay my yarn loosely in front, and then purl. And then I'm going to repeat those same stitches. 2 knits, purl, my SSK, so I'm going to bring those both over, my yarn over, lay my yarn loosely in front of the peg, and then I have a purl. Repeat those steps again. Knit, knit, purl, my SSK, lift both stitches over, my yarn over, lay my yarn loosely in front of the peg, and then my last one here is a purl. My edge peg for me is a purl. All right, so that was row 3. Now on to row 4. And again, with row 4, we're gonna, when we get to the pegs for row 1 where we have our knit 2 togethers and our yarn overs, we're going to be moving our stitches for those. So I'm gonna start with a knit. And my row 4 is 2 knits and a purl. But you'll see here that in my row 1, this is going to be a knit 2 together and a yarn over. So I'm going to purl that stitch, and then I'm going to move it over for my knit 2 together. And then I'm going to keep going with my row 4, which is 2 knits and a purl. 2 knits and when I get to this purl, I'm at my row 1 where I have my knit 2 together and my yarn over, so I'm going to move that purl for my knit 2 together for my row 1. And then I'm going to keep going with my 2 knits and a purl. And I am to that area again where I have my knit 2 together in my row 1 and my yarn over, so I'm going to move that purl back 1 for my knit 2 together. And then just finish off with my 2 knits and a purl. And my edge peg is a knit. All right, so that was my row 4. Again, we use that to set up for our row 1. So let's start with our row 1. So for my edge peg again, I am going to be purling. And then we have a knit, a knit, a purl. We have a yarn over. We're going to lay our yarn loosely over, and then we have our knit 2 together. We're going to lift both stitches up and over and end with a purl. And then we're just going to keep on repeating those same steps here for the end until the end of this row. Okay, coming to my end peg here, and that's going to be a purl for me. So that is the end of row 1. And then we're just going to keep repeating those same 4 rows until we get to the length of our pattern. And again, you know, we're going to be using that second and fourth rows to kind of set up for our first and third rows. We'll continue on with the 4 rows until we get to the length that we want. In my case, I am going to be making an infinity scarf, so I will lift back the cast on row and connect the 2 ends to make my scarf. Happy looming!